All right, everybody, welcome back to the Galaxy Podcast. This is episode 13, and today we're joined with GrafTheGiraffe. He is a caster for a lot of games. How are you doing today, my man?
I'm doing good. How about yourself? I'm glad you invited me on.
I'm living the good life. I mean, got the podcast going, streaming's going. It's going great. BO6 is out. It's
hmm
it's looking good.
I surely enjoy it. I think kind of one of the bigger issues I know a lot of people have talked about is the maps are a tad bit small, and I do agree with it. And I hope come like later this season. I know they released like a few new maps or
Mm.
something for season one. I haven't heard if any of those are going to be thrown into the rotation as of yet, but I think one is going to get taken out. And I know a lot of people don't like red card, and I personally love that map. And everybody's like, get that map out of here. I think if they just honestly completely shut out like the stadium part of red card, it would probably be a really good map.
It probably would be. I mean, uh, there's just a lot of maps on the game. You've seen it in previous CODs. I mean, there's some really good maps that you want in the rotation, and there's not the best maps.
Yeah.
And then, I've never seen people complain like this over this map before, though. This is more excessive over some of these maps, I think. I think they're all right. I mean,
Yeah, I agree. I do think the maps are just a tad bit small. You could tell just with how fast the game is. I think that's kind of what they were doing was catering to like a casual player where it's just chaos all the time. And
mm-hmm.
I know Skyline is that's probably the most even map, but even then, it just feels like it's very small. I don't know what they can do about that. Maybe like I thought if they closed in like vertically and widened the map a tad bit, I thought it would be better.
Oh, yeah.
Instead of just like the back spawns, kind of like having this extra like part of like the helicopter pad and like out where like the deck pool deck
Mm-hmm.
area. I kind of thought that was a little overdone. They probably didn't necessarily need that, but I guess you kind of do in all maps. And maybe I think if they wind it, you could have just had the spawns a little bit more in the corners.
Yeah, I mean, it's Call of Duty. What do you expect? I mean, you can't have a
Nothing's ever
perfect
going to be perfect
you can't
anymore.
have a perfect game anymore. I mean, it's whether you're going to get a remastered game with remastered maps or you're going to
uh,
get a new game with some decent slash worse maps. I mean, there's no in between. But I don't know. How's the casting been for BO6? Has there been any issues for that? Because I knew some games start off they've had some issues with casting.
I mean, the past two games have had issues with casting because I know MW3, you couldn't see any of the score time of like where or like how much hill time somebody had, so objective. And then for a long time, they didn't have the scoreboard being able to update properly, so it was just blank. And they still have that in BO6, but I know they're fixing it. But I know the issue with BO6 is the fact that in the kill feed, the names are different
Hmm.
for some people. If you're say you're spectating a person, named Raj or something like that. If you're spectating him and he gets the kill, it should pop up normally. But say you're spectating somebody else and Raj gets a kill, um, Raj's name would pop up as somebody else on his team.
Hmm.
So it's a little strange in that regard. And then you can't see how much hill time is left in the hard points, and I think that's a little frustrating. And the scoreboard, yeah, that I think you can work around that a tad bit, but and they also don't. They had it in the beginning of the game, and then since the update, they do not give you an after action report,
Hmm.
which is kind of strange. They have it like pulled up right as the game ends, but you're not able to like pull it up again once you're in the lobby.
That's really weird. That's I've watched some games, but I haven't watched them all the way through. But I casted a little bit for my league when I needed to, and I started to see problems when I think we moved into
I think it was
Vanguard,
MW2.
maybe it was
Yeah,
MW2.
Vanguard MW2 was probably where the issues started to arise a tad
Mm.
bit more. Um, yeah, and it just kind of felt like they didn't really care about it, which I mean, is understandable. Not many people are using Codcaster, right? I mean, there's the amateur scene, and you do have people using it, but not. It's not even a fraction to what the regular multiplayers are doing, and just making sure that the game mode itself is accurate.
Hmm.
So I kind of see why it takes a little bit of a back burner. But I think once the CDL starts up, of course they have, I think, a more updated copy. As far as like gameplay, it's not, but as far as like making sure that the staff and the stats are all accurate, they're probably able to fix that a lot quicker.
Yeah, it's just going to be. I mean that, and then they also have like they're the top notch. I mean they're the number one people in the country for streaming. Well, not for streaming, but for for esports for COD, obviously. So
Yeah.
like they're going to have the best stuff that you're going to see. I mean, if you're going to look at these amateur leagues and amateur streamers or casters, whatever you want to say, but some people have really like moved up. Like I know you did a LAN with Chef. How'd that go? I know he
Yeah,
really
that was
enjoyed it.
yeah, that was about 2 years ago now, or coming up on it. And Chef and I met through a league that was like tech or something. I can't remember. It was almost at 5 years ago now. And they were big with like high school teams and like trying to basically kind of start the college COD scene. And
Hmm.
I don't think it got enough traction or enough support. So it wasn't really like a money maker. And so they were losing money everywhere. But basically how Chef and I met was I was casting a game right after an update, and that's like a big no-no. I got to stop doing that whenever there's a massive update coming. I'm just not going to cast that first night because every time it has problems like you're delayed, 30 minutes to an hour. But it was on MW and the lobbies were not started up because they had the secured servers, right?
Hmm.
Or the dedicated servers, and they were not working for 3 hours. They told me
Jesus.
to stay on camera, like by myself. And then Chef came in because he saw, and then him and I just started, kind of shooting the shit for 2.5 hours, and we just became really good friends after that. But going to the land, it was my first one ever, and it was actually in Fort Collins, Colorado, which I actually was living at the time. And the people who work there, he's like, yeah, he's like, I've known you for the past 2 years, and he's like, I work at this gaming center and would love for you to come out and cast. He's like, who would you want to co-cast? I was like, you pay me less, or whatever you're thinking about pay me. Get a ticket for Gaming Chef and have him come out, and we'll crush it. We had a really good time, but he got so sick,
Oh
and I
man.
felt terrible because he came from Virginia. And so, first of all, it was a dry climate, and so he was not used to that.
Hmm.
And he got sick. Like he looked like a zombie. We talked about this about a few weeks ago,
Hmm.
and he's just like, dude, I look back at those pictures. He's like, I look sickly. He literally looked like he was dying.
Jeez.
And yeah, he couldn't speak hardly because he was just feeling terrible.
Yeah, I asked him about the same thing because I knew you guys did a LAN together a couple years ago, and he said he really enjoyed it. He never mentioned the sickness part though. He never
Yeah.
mentioned that, but that's
No, he
pretty
was
funny.
really sick. Yeah, he's a good guy too. Like he was so different in person. For like him and I had talked plenty of times over Discord, and then
Hmm.
when we just met in person, it was just like I felt like I was meeting a different guy, and
Hmm.
he just got even that much better. So
Oh, good. Anyways, I was going to ask you, how many LANs have you done, or was that your one and only LAN you've done so far?
no, I've done a few. I'm trying to think of like how many I have. Three. I've done six. I've done six lands in probably about the past 2 years. Last year was I think I only did two. And the year before I did four. So the reason why I only did two is because not a lot of people pay their casters, and I know like in the esports, just the amateur scene, there's just not a lot of money. They want to go towards the prize pool and everything.
Yep.
The one thing is I say is like, listen, I'm an adult. I got a life. Like I'm not
Hmm.
just gonna spend $400 on a plane ticket, pay for my housing, and everything like that, then come out and basically cast for 12 to 14 hours
Jeez.
um, straight each day, and then you guys give me 200, 250 bucks. It's like I set
Like
my
that paid for
price, and it's
everything.
and literally like I set my price to basically not make anything, is to break even.
Mm-hmm.
And so like, and I'm a pretty big guy, so I eat a lot of food.
Oh yeah.
So I mean, it really is like my land prices like went up, and they're like, oh, we sadly can't do that. And a lot of the time it was last minute. It was like
Mm-hmm.
the week before, and I was like, dude, I was like, I got work, I got a day job, like I gotta give them at least like a 2 week, um 2 to 4 week notice, and it didn't happen. But it's no hard feelings, and they understand that too,
Oh
which
yeah.
is, I think, there's been times where I've heard casters get really insulted if they don't get like a certain amount.
Mm-hmm.
Like I've kind of heard that in the scene of like casters. I'm like, I get it, but, only do what you think you are worth, and I do think that's important. Um, and I'm not saying their prices, low or high or whatever, but um they almost every single time I've heard it is like, oh yeah, they offered me this and I was so insulted. I was like, dude, just I'm like, I don't know why you're feeling insulted. Some people, that's as much as they can offer, and like you're burning bridges if you are like disrespect them back.
Oh
I
yeah.
get it if they're being assholes to you, but I think in this line of work, it's like, be a professional, right? I At least that's how I've always kind of considered my casting, is I want to be
Mm-hmm.
professional, I want to be courteous, because I understand like the strains of, trying to run a LAN or trying to run a league, everything like that. And I just, I'm like, hey, this is my price. I understand if you can't meet that, let's just part ways, but no hard feelings. And that's just kind of the way that it goes.
Yeah, a lot of people they aren't they're not really professional. Like if you look at, I mean, you could look at the leagues, you can look at lands, you could
Mm-hmm.
look at orgs. There's no professionalism in it. And I've talked about this with Golden and a lot of like Scrappy and Dangerous. I've talked to a
Mm-hmm.
lot of org owners about this, and they'll talk about how there's not really a lot of professionalism between everybody, and they
Yeah.
will just they don't treat it like a business. They just think it's all fun and games,
Yeah.
but then like when they bring money into it, they think they're just trying to get as much money as they can. They don't think about the people like you. Like when you told me that you were going to start charging to stream games, because when I was
Mm-hmm.
owning a league, I think you're still doing them for free at that time. So
Mm-hmm.
then when
Yep.
you started charging, I understood, and obviously I was a smaller league. Obviously I paid you for some games, but I couldn't get you in there as much as I could. Like some people, they have enough money where they can pay you for every single game of their league. I'm
Yeah.
like,
Yep.
that's understandable, but like, uh, I understood when you went to pricing. I completely understood. I couldn't believe like when you were doing it. I said, "There's no way I would be doing this for free." I was
Mm-hmm.
like,
Yeah.
"He's a great caster. You've always been my number one caster that I went to for leagues. You and Chef, you guys were my main guys."
I love Chef, man.
And I love Chef. After that I mean the podcast with him, that was great. And I got
Yeah.
to know him a lot better. I haven't talked to him much, but I've known you a little bit longer than him, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure though. But you guys have been like my main two casters I've really went to, and I've really told like my team or other teams to recommend for. Obviously, there's been like other little casters that I'm like, well, they can cast, but they're not as good. I'm like, these are like professional. If you want actual professional casters, you want these guys. But
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. How'd you really get into casting? Because I've never understood that story for some people.
Um, well, first of all, thank you for those are some very kind words. And yeah,
Mm-hmm.
like you said, it's like I understood, like, yeah, like you just can't pay for those matches as much as you want to, and that's just the way that it is. And you and I still had that relationship years later, so it just kind of shows. It just like, it all comes back around. I think at some point in time, like you're gonna run into that person
Mm-hmm.
again, or organization, whatever the case is. And you and I still have a good relationship, and just invite me on. I was like, yeah, absolutely. um but for as far as casting, I know back in MW, like right when they started the CDL,
Mm-hmm.
um is I was like, you know what? Maybe I'll just try a little bit of competitive. I knew I wasn't going pro. I was already, 22, 23. I was just having a good time out there. I was coaching some younger players, and there was a match. It was actually the Salvation's Elite League. They don't do any Call of Duty anymore. They did it for like one season for 2 years, and then there's like, yeah, no, enough of this because I think the COD players get a little crazy,
Oh
cheating,
yeah.
whatever the case is. Um, but there was I can't remember who was casting me. There, a very young kid, and I feel bad for saying this, but he was like 14, 15,
Oh wow.
and and I was like, I can cast better than him. And I do feel really bad because that's like such a dick thing to say, but I was like, oh, I could do better than that. And so I did. I started doing a few matches here and there, and people were like, hey, you're really good. Like, I would love for you to come and do this. And so I just kind of started doing it for fun. And then, I just had people, messaging me all the time to cast. And I was like, okay, like, you know what? I could do this. And I just enjoy it, man. I've always loved Call of Duty. Um, I think in a certain way. And kind of when I was growing up, it wasn't a very relevant or prevalent. Esports wasn't really a thing yet. It was still
Mhm.
kind of up and coming. And like you go back and look at those, BO2, Ghosts, MW3 lands, it was $20,000, $30,000 for like the world's tournament,
Mhm.
right? All the way back for MLG days, and I kind of got a lot of flack for it. Like my friends weren't gamers all that much. They knew how good I was, and my parents, of course, did not like it at all. So I was kind of shunned out of it. And so the reason why I've kind of continued to cast is because I want to give some young young players like confidence, right? Like
Mhm.
it's a lot more. I think gaming now is a tad bit oversaturated, but I think parents are a little bit more understanding with it. And I'm not saying everybody go pro because you have a higher chance of becoming a professional football player or any other sport than you do gamer.
Oh yeah.
Um, but I kind of do it just to show my support for the younger players and the people who weren't recognized. And because I didn't have that opportunity to get recognized as a player, I didn't know the proper routes or anything like that. And so part of that's on me not doing my own research. But I want to be able to give like some of those younger players that support that they needed, to show their parents like, hey, check out this cool, like in a competitive match, I had this, incredible play. Everybody was hyped about it, and like show like some parents aren't going to be as mad about that.
Mhm.
And I feel like some still shun their kids for playing video games, and I just kind of want to help that not be the case, and just kind of give more people the opportunity that I didn't have.
Yeah, a lot of people don't really like my parents. They never thought like I could make it on like streaming and stuff and like actually
Mhm.
competitive. And I still remember playing like Z League tournaments. I'd play Z League tournaments day after day, just getting
Yeah.
credits on like just Fortnite or Warzone. And heck, I'd make like $60 a day, which was pretty good. And when I was younger,
Yeah.
and but I would just keep playing them, and they never understood it. And they're like, you need to tone it down or you need to stop playing as much. I'm like, heck, I'm making money. And I said, because my parents wouldn't let me have a job. They said, you have
Hmm.
to pick between sports or a job. So I picked sports. So I played
Okay.
football
Interesting.
and discus and shot put and track. I didn't have
Oh,
a
nice.
winter sport, but they said that you need to focus on your sport and school because if you do sport, school, and job, there's no way you're going to make one of those. So your grades are going to fall, or you're not going to do as good in sports. You're going to take away from your sleep and stuff like that. So like
Hmm.
doing those like tournaments in your free time can make money, and like obviously you don't know the situation for like other kids, but like it can really detriment some kids when they see that people don't want them there. I mean,
Yeah.
uh, like I started streaming Roblox sometimes. Lot of like Roblox, there's not a lot of streamers, so you get a lot of viewers.
Hmm.
And people like if you come in and just talk down on kids, they'll leave. They
Yeah.
they just don't care. I mean, they'll go find somewhere else. I mean, and it's sad to see the COD scene if someone like an U18 if they're young enough, you get talked down on them, they might just up and quit. They could be an up and coming
Hmm.
competitor, and they're done. But I understand what you mean, shining the highlight on kids. I mean, I talked to Scrappy. He focuses on getting kids scholarships for college, and
Hmm.
he has a U18. He helps with the U18 COD league,
Yeah.
and he really focused on getting kids scholarships, and he's really enjoyed doing that.
Hmm. Yeah, and yeah, it kind of, shows. And I would love to, do something like that if I had those types of, connections. Luckily, I can reach out to probably some organizations or something like that, but I had CSU in Fort Collins reach out to me and, want to be able to commentate some of their matches because they're creating their own Call of Duty team, which is awesome. And I do love that, right? Like I
Mm-hmm.
think high schools are starting to have more Call of Duty teams, but I do think there's a stipulation, right? Because it's rated M.
Oh yeah.
So I kind of think that is the only thing. So it kind of has to be more of a club
Mm-hmm.
than an actual like esport. But I think my favorite gaming clip of all time is just like I would love to be a part of that is in Rocket League when like their high school
No.
team they all came out and like the entire school was there. They like posted the game up on like the large
Oh
scoreboard
yeah.
and everybody was so hyped. I was like, dude, you know how cool that is? Like just to get that type of support for playing a video game is like
Exactly.
that just boosts everybody's confidence and not to mention like they're going to remember that moment for years to come.
Oh yeah.
And I get chills just thinking about videos like that and just like man, I'm so happy to see how far that it has come and I wish I was almost born 10 years uh later
Mm-hmm.
and be like born in this time right now because there's a lot more opportunities for the esports to grow and community and it's just great to see it but like you said like the cod scene is known for being very toxic. I don't think as much as the Gears of War scene those are like grinders like those
Mm-hmm.
guys are oh man talk about insults. um but those are some like older heads too.
Mm-hmm.
But it's awesome to see that where Call of Duty has came from. I know a lot of the pros are sad how the professional matches are done, but they got to realize if you want to franchise it, make it a business. There's going to be stipulations where these people are wanting to do things differently, and I think like they said on Zuma's league is that or Zuma's channel and stream that some of these guys just have no idea how to run an esports business compared to a different, a normal business.
Mm-hmm. And like you can bring in a lot of like normal things like when I look back at like I own Frosted Vipers. I don't know if you remember that or not, but
Oh yeah,
I
yeah.
own Frosted Vipers and I own Lunar at the same time. And I wasn't in business yet. I was still in high school. I think I was a sophomore when I started Frosted Vipers and Lunar.
Hmm.
Now I'm graduated, but now I'm a partner in the family business. But now I'm looking back after I'm learning all these business values and learning all the mistakes I made. I mean, I could go back and redo everything and actually make a successful team, but still, it's because I've found the esports part of it of business, and then now I've seen the real parts of business. If I combine them, it could make a really good team, but I just don't have the time, and a lot of
Right,
people don't understand how much time and commitment you have to be to have a team,
right,
and you have to be dedicated. There's no little bit about uh, just sitting there and relaxing. I mean, you have to be at the top. It's the same thing with business. You got to be at the top to just sit
hmm
back and relax. There's just you have to dedicate yourself to almost everything, even Call of Duty.
yeah. And it's hard, like you said, and I think for a lot of orgs, right, is finding the right people who have the same mindset because I've seen that happen time and time again where you think you pick the right person or the right few people to help you run a league, run a team, and then you realize, oh, this person's like just gonna dip out or whatever the case, or somebody's holding secrets. And it's truly just about like making the right decision and who you trust. It's really hard to do that because everything's virtual, right? Or a majority of
Mm-hmm.
it is. So you don't really know everybody's true intentions because you've seen. I remember there was this guy who would start up leagues, and then he would did it for two or 3 years he would start up leagues and then he would steal all the money and then he would just disappear from the league and to start up a new one somewhere else.
That's
And I was
crazy.
like, what the heck? And he would he would delete that, Discord. He would create a new Twitter and everything. He's like, hey, I'm trying to start up a new Call of Duty league, and he would do the same thing.
That's crazy.
Um, and I was like, man, I can't believe that there are people who still do that type of things, and it sickens me that you taint the community like that.
It really hurts
So
everybody. I mean, it
mhm.
doesn't just hurt the player; it hurts the org. I mean, like you can have a small org, like say like me, I'm putting money into this, and then they just dip. It really hurts. I mean, I
Mhm.
was young in high school. I was competing to earn my money, and that really hurts the team quick, especially if you're young. And like Golden, he's 19 years old owning his team.
Yeah.
He's sending all his players to lands at like 4 or 5 a year, and that gets expensive.
Oh
Just
yeah.
imagine nobody showed up to the land to run it, and he spent hundreds of dollars, maybe
Oh
thousands,
yeah.
just to send a team to a land, and nobody shows up. That'd just be detrimental.
Yeah. Right. I think that's so difficult to do that. And yeah, credit to him for running it. And I know he played in the U18 for a long time, and then I think he started that acrylic. I think right at the end of Vanguard, if I remember correctly. I can't remember exactly which one,
I don't
but
remember when he took. He didn't start it. He actually took it over. He actually started
oh,
competing
okay,
there, and then he worked his way up, and then he became like he's co-owner currently or something like that.
okay.
But I don't remember exactly when he took it over, but that sounds about right though.
Yeah, it's I love that league, fun league, and like you said, it's about supporting a lot of these young players, and the games are just entertaining, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of them know that or you watch the matches, it's just pure chaos. It's ego chows, there's not a lot of game plan. I think there's a few players that are really good IGLs, excuse me, and you can hear it in the comms.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but a lot of the matches are just like, yep, I'm just gonna go out and chow this guy, even though I'm one hit. And
Yeah.
it's just a lot of entertainment. It is a caster, you love it. You
I.
love it, and it's great to see all these, professionals supporting the younger guys. I love that. I love that
Mm-hmm.
Zuma and Scrappy are doing that type of thing because it shows that hey, there are people here who are going to help support you and help you grow as a player, as an organization, and just as a person. I don't think a lot of people touch on that. Remember, you're
Mm-hmm.
investing in a person, not just a player. Like they have outside things that they can't control, and neither can you. And I think just being a genuine heart to heart person, it makes a difference.
Yeah, it really does, and I mean, like a lot of people I've seen, like I've talked to a lot of people. I mean, I know you've talked to a lot of people, especially as a caster, owning a league and owning a team, knowing like the ins and outs of a lot of players. I mean, some people they just have no drive or they have a big heart for the game, and somebody can really kill it for them. And I've
Mm-hmm.
seen it happen. Somebody just their love for a game just dies because somebody killed it for them, but one thing I always enjoy was the rivalries.
Yeah.
Then again, that can get toxic, like you said. The rivalries between orgs. I mean, I had one with me and Rogue Gaming. You casted both of my Rogue
Oh
Gaming's
yeah.
matches.
Yeah,
They were
Rogue. Yeah.
back to back days. You were still doing it for free. It was the championships, and I still remember those. And Rogue Gaming ended up actually disbanding after those two championship losses of Frosted Vipers. But
Was that was that the series that went like two best of fives, like Mat 5 round 11s?
yeah,
I think I think that was the funnest series I had ever like cast because every single game was like this close. First best of five, the losers team won it in a round
mm-hmm.
11, Mat 5, and then they did it again.
yeah.
And and funny enough, that actually happened for the XP League too. It went to two Mat 5 round 11s,
Mm-hmm.
and I was like, I can't believe like those are the best series because everybody is tuned in and they're like,
Yeah.
holy crap, like this is actually happening. So it's a lot of fun.
I remember you casting. It was like a 3 or 4 hour cast. I'm like, man, I feel
Oh
bad for this
God,
guy
yeah,
doing
I
this for
know.
free. I'm like, but this is great, man. I'm loving this.
Yeah.
I'm just sitting there. It was like 2 or 3 in the morning. We're just still going at
Yep,
it.
yep.
I'm like, oh my god. I'm like, because I'm sweating because my team's on the line and
Oh
going
yeah.
up against Rogue, and it's 4-4. I'm like, man, we're about to lose, you know? I'm like, God. But it was great. I mean, I miss those times almost in Cold War, but uh, that's just how it is. So, how really booked up are you coming out now? Because I know you used to be booked up like almost hour after hour.
So yeah, so since I kind of started charging, like the older I get, right, my time is more valuable to me.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the only reason why I, make my price like I don't even think I'm charging that much. Like I was $5, now it's 750 per series. And I always want to be accessible. I feel like there are people that are charging 15, $20 to cast a single series, and I get it if that's like their main goal is to get money, but I always
Mm-hmm.
want to be accessible to people, and I think that's the reason why I love the amateur scene so much is I never want to feel out of reach, um because I just enjoy doing it that much. But typically I could get booked every single day for the whole week if I really really tried, and I
Mm-hmm.
typically booked at least 5 days out of the week. But like I said, I have a life outside of Call of Duty. I work full time, and typically I've been working a lot of hours just due to how my job is. It picks up during like cold snaps and heat waves. So it really just kind of depends on what my schedule is looking like and if I just need a break. But I love it. I just love casting. If I had three of myself, I would cast all the matches. Like I no joke would. I would be like, okay, I'm gonna get that one, that one, that one, that one. And yeah, I wish I had duplicates of myself to do it, but I don't. But I love that there's more casters every single year. Like Rarity, phenomenal person. Same with Big Rich X. I'm sure you've seen him around the
Mm-hmm.
scene. They're just phenomenal people, and I love getting to know them and casting with them. Um, and it's just making those relationships. Outside, there's going to be a time when you can't compete anymore, right?
Yeah.
And there's going to be a time where I might have a wife and kids and I can't cast anymore. And just being able to talk to those people outside of the game, it makes all the difference. That's what video games has been all about, is just making those connections. Even though you might not be there in person, you can still do that thousands of miles away, and you still keep those relationships throughout the year. And I know a lot of these casters that I've had the opportunity of commentating with, we're going to be friends for years to come. And I like to keep those relationships strong and always check in on how they're doing.
Yeah, and another thing just about the Call of Duty scene and esports scene, you get a lot of relationships. And there's tons of relationships you can create for years. Heck, I still have relationships I created with teams from 2017
Yeah,
that
right.
I've had. And, like, they're still my best buddies. And the first people in my Discord, whatever. Heck, my Discord's over 600 members, and they were my first 50 in here. And I still remember them, and we still talk all the time, and they still come to stream, and it's great. The relationships, and then just picking right back up where we left off, and
Yeah.
uh, heck, even knowing people where you add them like on like Snapchat or Instagram, and like just your personal stuff. It's great when you actually get to, and then like we have an old group. It was kind of like a community. It was called It was Divert Esports, I think. You probably never
Okay.
heard of it. It was back in Modern
Mhm.
Warfare 2019. I have me, Solway, Rhino, and Bernsey. So there's those four people. Those were like the main four from that org, and we all plan to meet up in Michigan next year to go like to Lake Michigan and have like a little get
Oh,
together
cool.
there, and just come from all over the country. Like Solway, he's from Canada. Rhino, he's from Arizona. I'm from
Mhm.
Indiana, and then Bernsey's also from Canada, but Michigan's about dead center where everybody's from. Besides Rhino, he's kind of way far out. It kind of
Yeah.
kills for him, but uh, it's really going to be a great time. And just the relationships. I mean, you can really carry them on to real life. But I've seen horror stories about relationships too. I mean, I've seen stuff like that,
Mhm.
but it's it's really a hit or miss. I mean, the relationships just for esports, and like you talked about, uh, in the big stadium, and they put the whole school came out to watch, and the relationships you create with that, you're going to remember them forever. You're never going to forget it. You're
Yeah.
just going to the relationships always going to matter.
Yeah, it is, and it's just it's cool that the community can do that and continue to do that throughout the years. As much as there are toxic people, right? There's always going to be somebody that's going to try to dampen the mood, but you can't let that one person, uh, you know, cause rift between everything that you've done,
Mm-hmm.
and the relationships you've had with other people, and just gaming in general is fun. I'll always do that, and I know what is it the only time I know I'll take a break is usually during the summer. I don't do a lot of casting during
Mm-hmm.
the summer. Everybody does throwbacks. I'm a person that does not do throwbacks. I'm not a fan of throwbacks whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
um because I'm like, you know what? That game has come and gone. Like
Yep.
the time has passed, and I don't look back on that. I think I have an Xbox, an original Xbox, an Xbox 360, and every now and then I'll put in my um, the Xbox 360. And I'll play Call of Duty 2. I'll play the campaign, and I'm like, man, this just brings back so much nostalgia.
Oh yeah.
But I think that's like really one of the only ones. And then I think Old Zombies is what I would probably go back for, not the online portions anymore because they're Xbox Live servers are shut down now.
Yeah.
So, um, but it's cool to see that grow throughout the years.
Oh yeah. And then the growth is crazy. I mean, just the Call of Duty scene. Like heck, when I started getting in the Call of Duty scene, there was not as many teams as there are now.
No,
Twitter
no,
is a big thing for it, or X, whatever you want to call it.
yeah,
I still call it Twitter, but
same.
and I still remember people say Instagram team or Twitter team, and I still remember that people saying you're an Instagram team. So I joined Twitter at that point, but Twitter is a whole different boss, and like just seeing all the
Yeah,
new players, all the new teams, it's crazy. And like heck, you can just go on Twitter and you can find new leagues that are very populated, and there's just tons of people that you did not know exist, and they're everywhere anymore. It's crazy.
yeah. There's some amateur leagues that run it so well. I know you were saying the ZGL, they do a phenomenal job, and one that's been around since I can remember was the XP League. The XP
Mm-hmm.
League, I remember years ago, was like, I think even when it started, it was probably one of the more popular amateur Call of Duty leagues. That one and one that was called NACAL. That one, unfortunately,
Yeah, I remember
they try.
NACAL.
Oh, well, it was so sad because they had so much traction trying to throw a New York LAN, and then it nothing happened. And then the guy
Mm-hmm.
was like, "Screw this!" Like nobody supported it, even though I've been doing this for years. Still a phenomenal dude, but I was just like, dude, I'm sorry. Like your league was awesome. I think that was kind of on par with XP League. But now the XP League does 88 teams.
That's
Like that's
crazy.
crazy. That's nuts. And they said they were going to cap it at 64. And DC Trig, who helps
Mm-hmm.
run it, and he helps run a lot of leagues, he was like, yeah, he's like, we just had to. He's like, we had to expand it to 88, and it's always consistent, and you love to see that. I think the one thing that I like seeing out of leagues is consistency, is seeing how good it is ran and how good it's operated. And I never hear anything bad. Yeah, of course, nothing's going to be perfect. You'll always have disgruntled gamers, disgruntled orgs, losing in a close map, or saying, oh, hey, this person used a pistol that he wasn't supposed to at the very end of the game, even though his team was losing by 180 points, 250 to like 60. And then they'll be like, oh, yeah, that's GA. And I'm like, GAs, I think, should only go so far.
Mm-hmm.
It's disrespectful to pull out a weapon like that, but it's like your team's not going to win,
Yeah.
right? Like, and then they pull that, like, oh, that's BS. Like, we're going to take this map off of you. So I'm all for, if you know your team's losing, they're going to lose. Like, you're going to replay it. It's going to happen the same way.
One thing that I've always never understands why they don't just put GAs in the CDL, like just the actual CDL mode, just put GAs in that, because obviously there's different GAs, but like just put the GAs in there, like the professional ones, just put them in there at that point, because there will be, you can look all over Twitter and there's this GA, this GA, this GA,
Yeah.
and then teams will be like, well, this isn't a GA on this one. Well, this isn't a GA on that one. I mean, I've seen it because I own the league, but like, I just never understood why they never put it in there. I mean, I can kind of understand, but at the same time, I don't.
Hmm. Yeah, are you talking about like in the CDL mode they put like the GA rules set or something like that so you
Yeah,
could like scroll through them? Is that what you're saying?
yeah,
Okay. Yeah,
like
I mean,
or
I think it would be helpful, but then again, you have to enforce that in game if you leave, guns unlocked, whatever the case is. So
yeah,
I think it's a little hard because Call of Duty, right? Like the developers are catering a majority of casual players.
mm-hmm,
I think where a lot of people just don't like the games anymore is because skill-based matchmaking became a thing,
mm-hmm,
and it puts you with people your same skill level where you could just hop on in and have a fun game just with complete
yeah,
randoms. And now you can't do that anymore, and
like
it does kind of put a damper on things. You're like, I just want to hop in and have a good time, and then when you have a few good games, it's like, yep, we're gonna up you into another section, and then you're gonna get absolutely crapped on.
yeah, for about double the games that you've already had,
Yeah.
and then so you play your good games, and then they're like, okay, well, we're just gonna make sure and just do 5 more, and then you just get shit on more. So then you go back. I'm like,
Hmm.
come on, you can't have a fun time. There's pub stomping's almost gone. I honestly believe it. Pub stomping's
Yeah.
almost gone. You just can't pub stomp anymore.
No, no. And then well, then there's times where you hop in and it's like, you'll get, teamed with, yeah, I saw somebody who went into the rank and they played the entire optic lineup and I was like, oof, that looks brutal. Like,
Oh
I'm
yeah.
glad I'm not that good at the game anymore.
it,
But still.
I mean, there's tons of stuff that you could go on about, but I mean, it's Call of Duty. You can't really expect much from it, but it's different every year, and obviously you casting, you see a lot of it. Um, I bet you've casted for tons and tons of amateur leagues, and probably some that I've never
All
even
right.
heard about. And you've probably met thousands of players. But one thing that I always looked into, I talked about this with Chef, and I thought about doing this. It's so like an ESPN analysis of like leagues. Have you ever
Mhm.
like tried that? Because Chef kind of done it once, but I never knew if you ever dove into that.
So that's actually something that I have in the works, and Chef actually and I talked about this. I was telling him, I was just like, the thing is like if you did it for all esports, it's so difficult, right? Like that person
Mm-hmm.
has to be the most diverse gamer and know everything to a T. They have to know all the competitive esports, but there's so many games, right? Like you just simply cannot keep up.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, it would be like I would want to do like almost like a Scott Hansen,
Mm-hmm.
do a breakdown of each league, and I do have something of that in the works that I'm trying to work out with a few of the leagues and say, hey, can you send me clips of like what was like the big game of the week? I can go through the standings and talk about what happened and maybe bring on a player or two, whatever the case is. But it's a lot of production. Like
Mm-hmm.
that's the thing. It would take a lot of production power to be able to keep doing that on a weekly basis, let alone a daily basis would be so difficult. But I would love to see that. Like I'm kind of confused why. Um, I'm not. Maybe it is because I don't have cable anymore. Why they haven't done a like an esports channel,
Oh yeah.
right? Like a competitive. Maybe they have. Maybe they do. But I feel like they should do it. It makes sense
Mm-hmm.
because I feel like it would just get a lot of support from so many different walks of life.
Oh
Like,
yeah.
it's not just one game. You get so many others and it opens up the eyes to those people like, hey, there's a competitive scene for this. Go and check it out. And so I really hope like that would be a dream of mine to be a commentator for an esports. Like
Oh yeah.
that would be
Just so
so
like
like
esports analyst instead of sports analyst, just an esports analyst, and
I would love it because I would learn every game.
oh yeah.
Like I as much as they needed me to, I'd be like, okay, tell me how to do it. I will do my background and it's so funny. Scott Hansen said it best. He's like, the reason why I'm not married is because when I get home, he's like, I have an Octa setup where he has 8 TVs in his living
Oh
room,
my
and
god.
he has 8 different screens for something. He's like, yep, I'll have a news channel, I'll have a few of the other games on, and I'll have a movie on in one. And he's like, and I watch all of them. And I'm like, dude, that's nuts, but that's so cool.
Oh man,
And
that's
he's like, that's the
crazy.
reason why is because he's like, I'm always absorbing knowledge of something pop culture and other sports, something in the news, and he's just such an incredible commentator. And I see why so many people love the Red Zone because
Mm.
he's just entertaining. Like that's
Oh
what he
yeah.
is. He just has a positive attitude, and he's so knowledgeable about everything. So I would
Yeah.
love to do that. That would be like a dream come
Hmm.
true for me, being able to host something like that for esports. I would love it.
I even thought about like getting like a few people that know like the scene very well, and like maybe like just like four people in general, me and three other guys, and we go to a league and do like the first season free. Just do like just one season and really focus on it.
Hmm.
Each person goes and watches one game a week, and you take notes, and then you fill in everybody before, have like a meeting, and then you talk about it and give your opinion on
Hmm.
stuff, or someone can watch the breakdown of it or whatever. But I feel like that could be big. I even thought about doing it for like the podcast, like just through the Galaxy podcast, and just do like a separate portion of it, just like an analyst, and like do it free for one season, and then maybe if we do good, then we make it where you have to pay for it and be like, well, this is what we have to offer, this is what we did before, and you just focus on a whole season of it. And it doesn't even have to be
Hmm.
big, just like a 30-minute episode and a week or something like that. Uh, to go over the games, like the players, and you can really dive into the stats of every single person, dive into the games, the rivalries, or talking about the teams, the ups and downs and stuff, the who's shooting bodies, who's having rivalries and stuff like that. I feel like
Hmm.
that can really give the league an upper hand, and
Yeah.
because not you don't see that anywhere. You don't see no analysts.
Hmm.
You have the caster, and like and some of them go into depth. I know you sometimes go into depth about it when in like a cut scene out between games, but not a lot of people go into depth about like stats and stuff, and like not a lot of leagues go into that. But like CGL, they focus on stats and put it on their website. I feel like
Hmm.
that could be a really big focus for like an analyst team or something like that.
Yeah, no, and that would be awesome. And that's how, right, like the challengers, I know a lot of the commentators is like they have like these stats. And I
Mm,
I'm not saying that everybody can do it, but it's just like if I had those types of stats of like every player, like you said,
mm,
it makes a difference in what you can talk about and be knowledgeable about those players or organizations or whatever the case may be. And it allows you to propel yourself a lot farther too, because it's you're more in depth, that that's what people want to see. Um, but it's a lot of these amateur leagues do not have those types of stats, or they're not accurate, or they're
mm,
not up to date quick enough, right? It's hard when you have that many teams, and then not to mention you're relying on the game to be perfect and being able to get those stats accurately, somebody not leaving when
yep.
I think, like you said, if there are colleges, they have a little bit more support. It's a lot of manpower. It's a
Mm-hmm.
lot, you have to have an analyst. You have to have somebody who is a stats guy and
Yep.
has to make sure. Then you have to, maybe have a rep that makes sure hey, like if this paused here, this is what, their stats are at currently.
Mm-hmm.
Right. It's very difficult. And one thing I uh, do between in my games during search and destroy, I have, um, I actually keep record of every single series that I've casted,
Mm-hmm.
of what each map score was, and then in search and destroy, I keep track of first bloods. Like
Mm-hmm.
that's the one thing I do is like which team got the first blood, and then I don't keep track of the player of who got it, but you can tell if somebody's popping up. You're like, in the moment, I'm like, hey, that person has 5 first bloods this game.
Mm-hmm.
And I almost need to do an own analysis on my own spreadsheet and be like, hey, how many teams have gotten first bloods in the amateur scene, converted that to round wins, converted that to map wins.
Oh
I'm
yeah.
not a stats guy, so I don't know how that would work, but it would be really cool to figure out those types of, like you said, logistics, because it just goes, way deeper than just seeing what's on your screen.
Yeah, because you can really like this map, this player really does good, and or this map,
Yep.
this player really pops off. Or search and destroy, they're better here. Hardpoint, they're better here. Control, they're better here, and that's really. And then like a lot of people have to take notes. I mean, I know Chef, he always takes notes. You take
Yep.
notes too. I'm pretty sure I've seen you do it a couple times. uh, but a lot of it's you got to really prepare for it. I mean, and I know CGL, they're like trying to incorporate it into a website to get like they have to like pay for it or something, and then get all the stats sent to the website, and then
Oh, okay.
they have to like a spreadsheet set up like Google Sheets or something like that where they get it all set up, and then like they just take a picture of it and then they put it into like the website, and it just does all the stats together, which would be really nice. And then for
Mhm.
like an analysis like me, if I ever did that, it would go right into it, and that'd be pretty good.
Yeah, it. I mean, like I said, it's just having that person who's smart enough to do it and willing enough to do it. I think in the esports scene, what it comes down to is somebody's time. They do it for a year for free, and then they're like, you know what, like I want to start getting paid for this because I've been doing it for a long time, right? I think that
Mm-hmm.
just kind of comes down to it, and there's not a lot of funding, right? Like
Yep.
I think, a lot of teams, Discord leagues, whatever the case is, it's a lot more difficult in the long run. I think in the beginning, it's you do it out of enjoyment, and then eventually you're kind of like, okay, like I've been doing this a lot, I've gotten really good at it. I kind of want to start, you know, not doing it necessarily for fun because I'm putting so much time and effort into it.
Oh yeah. I mean, I talked to Chef about it. And he said it could go either way, and he said I wish you
Mhm.
luck on it, but me personally, I wouldn't do it because of difficulties on that and stuff around that.
Mhm.
Because he says you never know when a league's going to drop and stuff like that. I'm like, yeah, I
Exactly.
understand that, but I mean, it'd be like a paid up front thing to even do it, because you would do it free for like one league. Like, say I do it for free for like CGL, like be like, this is going to be my first season with you guys, and this is just to test it out. You guys don't have to give me anything. You guys just got to give me stats. You do it for a season, and then you have a whole series of seasons, a series of episodes that you can send to other leagues and be like, hey, this is what we do. This is our price. Would you be interested? And we would come do this for a season. And if you want an up a season, we'll go do it another season, you know? And I feel like that could really help out leagues get to another level too, because there's, like you
Mhm.
said, there's no analysts for esports. And I had cable for a while, and I'm pretty sure there's no analysts scenes for it.
Yeah, there's definitely not many, and they're looking for they're looking for people like that too. I think as it continues, like the community in general grows, it's going to be a hot commodity. Whoever gets that person, right? Because you can't do it for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
So whoever is able to grab that person is going to be just that step higher than everybody else.
Oh yeah, and that's just how it's gonna be. But
Mm.
we're moving up to 15 minutes on the episode. I appreciate you coming on. I think I know your time's valuable, like you said. My time's valuable too, and I got stream here in a little bit. I don't know if you got any games for tonight, but uh, I enjoyed having you on, man. I mean, it's always nice chatting with you. It's been a minute since we've talked too, since
I know.
I've always been busy, and it's I kind of cut out of the scene for a while, so it was great having you on.
No, yeah, I appreciate you having me, and I'm actually trying to get two matches lined up potentially. So we'll see if they want me to do it. If not, I'll go and hit the gym, and be that'll be my night. So
Oh yeah, that'd be great, but maybe I'll tune in if I have time. But is there any socials you want to plug to everybody to check you out? Twitter, Twitch, anything?
yeah, I can be reached at like all my Twitters, Instagram, Discord is all Graph the Giraffe, GRAF the Giraffe. That simple. You could add it at almost anything, and I'll pop up. Even if you Google me, I think all of my Discords pop up right away. So if you ever want me to commentate Call of Duty or any other games, feel free to reach out. I'm absolutely open to being able to do that for you.
I appreciate having you on. And this guy, you need to schedule him. I love this guy for casting. I've had him for matches. He's a great guy to stream with. I've watched tons of his matches that he's casted before. And you guys can find me, Real Blue Star Gaming, on almost anything besides Twitter, because Twitter thinks Real Blue Star Gaming is too long. So it's underscore Real Blue Star underscore. Because screw Twitter. I will always say that almost every time because Twitter hates me. But I appreciate having you on, man. But
Yeah, thank you for having me.
yep, and we'll see you guys next time. See you guys.